We're live. Hello, everyone. It is time to kick it in gear. Welcome to the Swift Kick Show. My name is Kevin Griffin. I'm the owner of Swift Kick. We're a software training and consulting company based out of Southeast Virginia. And today I am joined by my special guest, Kyle Welch. How are you, Kyle?
Hey, Kevin. I'm good.
Well, we're very glad to have you. And those of you watching out there, I hope you had a great holiday season. We took a break from the show just because it's really difficult to find someone that wants to do a show the day after Christmas. I don't know why. So we didn't have our Christmas special this year, but man, no big deal. So we have the live show here on a Webinar Jam. If you're out there, say hi in our chat. And we're also cross-streaming this to Twitch at the same time. We're experimenting with a couple different distribution ideas. And I think this might actually just go straight Twitch future, maybe not the next episode, but in the next month or two, I think about just move everything to Twitch. But well, let's get this started. I want to learn a little bit more about Kyle. I've had the opportunity to meet Kyle in person. You spoke at Revolution Conf last year. And I don't remember what you spoke about at all. I just remember you were there. Most of that conference is a blur to me as an organizer. What did you speak about? Do you remember?
I think I only gave one talk. I think it was on Git and source control.
Git and source control. Okay, that sounds familiar. I mean, I can't tell you. I actually can't think of a single talk that I remember from Revolution Conf. Because we go through the entire process of choosing the sessions. We have the conference. I meet all these amazing people. The conference happens, and then it's like it all goes away. My memory just fades. But anyone out there watching, Revolution Conf is back again this year, June 6th and 7th. Same place it was before, the beautiful north end of Virginia Beach, Virginia. And you can find tickets and more information at revolutionconf.com. We're selecting sessions on Friday. So hopefully next week we can announce a couple of our speakers. But enough about that. Let's learn more about Kyle. Kyle, I like to ask all of our guests a couple just very easy softball questions. How about this first one? Kyle, tell us who do you work for and what do you say you do here?
All right. So I'm at Eventbrite. The shirt really helps with that. I actually work on our front-end platform team. And so I build the tools to make our front-end developers as efficient and effective as possible, try and get us shipping as quickly as possible. I took on that role about June of last year, so it was a pretty exciting time.
Fantastic. I know sometimes I wear Microsoft shirts or I'll wear vendor shirts that I get at conferences. So it's not immediately obvious that you worked for Eventbrite because you could just be a frugal person who gets conference shirts. So
that's also very true about me as well.
So Kyle, those who have not had the opportunity to meet you before, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story? How did you get started down this crazy road of software development?
Oh, I'm going to try and keep a little bit of that for the talk, but some of the upsides, it really started in high school, working on the high school website, which I'll dig into in the talk a little bit. Was born and raised north of Chicago, and so I had a few different development jobs there. Ended up working for a local advertising company, building websites for the city and local municipalities and things like that. Which was a pretty fun experience working in PHP and WordPress early on. So from there, I got a bachelor's degree and started picking up .NET. I got the title full stack developer and wore that on my sleeve as much as possible. So since then, I've kind of taken more of a JavaScript specific role, and I'm really trying to focus in on the JavaScript skills.
Awesome. So outside of tech, do you have any interesting hobbies that have nothing to do with computers at all?
Well, I've got 3 kids. My 3 boys keep me pretty busy outside of tech. But probably my favorite thing to do outside of family and outside of code has to be hockey. One of my coworkers in from San Francisco last week, and we actually went and played ice hockey together. which is a really fun experience.
That's awesome. I'm also in the 3-boy club as well. Mine, yeah, they're a hobby is the best way to put it. Well, how about one more question? Just if you look at the landscape of technology and kind of exciting things that are coming down the line, what do you think you're most excited about? And don't tell me just some random JavaScript framework. Just pick something a little bit more exciting.
Darn, all of the JavaScript frameworks. I think like some of the stuff that I'm really excited about actually kind of stems from a pretty funny interview question I overheard. They were asking how you would store event data for an like a space conference, not a space conference like dev space or like a rocket based one, but literally a conference in space. And the interesting problem that came out of it, and this one hit me pretty hard, was how do you handle time zones, intergalactically? I think that'll be a pretty interesting problem. Like, space travel being like the first step, but then like, how do we tell time and date math?
No, you're absolutely right, because isn't like a lunar day on the moon, or not a lunar day, Mars, I forgot what the Solstice. A Mars Solstice is 28 hours and not 24 hours. It's something weird like that. So you can't tell time the same on Earth as you do on other planets or other satellites. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a hard problem. I'm going to be pretty safe and assume I'll be dead before that problem has to be solved in a legitimate way. So the SwiftKick Show coming to you at 5200 solar blah 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 time and
Galactic Standard Time. I think we've already termed it.
So isn't that the what's Star Trek do? Stardate blah blah blah. That's kind of consistent across the universe, isn't it?
There we go. That'll work.
I have no idea what any of those dates mean. They just increment the number, a fraction every episode, and yeah. All right. Well, that's enough rambling from me. Kyle, let's go ahead and give the people what they actually came here to see. And I'll let you take it over from here. And If you're out there in Chatland, whether on Twitch or in Webinar Jam, leave us messages, and we'll make sure those get to Kyle towards the end of the session.
Awesome. So I'm hoping should be able to see slides here properly.
We're good.
Right. I've only got the one screen, so I can't see anything anymore. But I can see the slides, which is what's important here. So I'm here to talk about taming the wilderness, specifically looking at the JavaScript ecosystem and trying to get a brief overview into some of modern JavaScript. But like I said before, I want to start back at the beginning and really what was the motivation of this talk. So I mentioned working on my high school website. This is actually it here. I used the Wayback Machine and was able to pull the website as it was the first day that I worked on it. It was a pretty interesting and low budget site. It was constricted to the left, only 800 pixels wide, and used a number of images, most of which you can see from the Wayback Machine are broken, and tables all over the place. This was pre-CSS and Flexbox for sure. My job on this in the very early days was making sure our picture here in the corner and the quick dates section were always up to date. So we had a seasonal picture, and then if it was on here it's September 13th, if it was no longer September 13th, I had to make sure I cleared all of those and moved them up, which now would be an API call and a re-rendering, and I'm out of a job. So you got to build that stuff up before, and now it becomes just a simple API call, which was pretty nice. Eventually I moved this site to PHP. And so if you're familiar with PHP, then you might know what this is. This is a broken PHP page. You might be saying, why is it a broken PHP page? Well, if you haven't worked with PHP, a missing semicolon produces just a blank white page. And this is in the early days where you didn't really have a test environment. So the only way I found this out was by F2Ping my PHP files to production. Honestly, I still don't know how to test PHP locally. So if you have any ideas, throw them in the chat because I'm still lost there. Moving on from that, JavaScript was supposed to get fun. So introduction of jQuery was huge. It was supposed to make things easier to build, easier to share, and overall just a more fun experience for developers. Well, most developers, that is. I didn't actually have the luxury of using jQuery. I switched between a few different companies, and everyone wanted me to build using the platform. So I threw this snippet together. This isn't something I necessarily wrote in the past. I actually just wrote it yesterday. But it's you're using the platform directly to create and add elements to the page. And it pretty much mimics what I was doing at one of my jobs, cloning elements that were hidden on a page and then ensuring that they were dynamically rendered. I like to think about these days as like my pre-React days that kind of looked like React, but really don't look like React much at all. So this was a period in my life where I was building a lot of web tech, and I realized I hate doing web development, which is an interesting thing to say when you have a bachelor's degree in web administration and development. People are like, what do you mean? You went to school for this? Like, this is what you're supposed to be good at. And it wasn't that I wasn't good at it. It just wasn't what I was passionate about. And the problems weren't the problems I wanted to solve. So I got to a point where I really realized that what I liked doing was building APIs and tools for other developers to be efficient. And JavaScript and web development just didn't allow for that. So instead of solving real hard problems, Sarah covered it best, is that basically my front-end development looked like a testing matrix of making sure that I had proper responsive design and cross-browser support. And that wasn't the stuff that I wanted to be doing. I wanted to make people's lives easier. I didn't want to make sure everything worked in IE7. So eventually, I had this great idea. I had already had .NET knowledge, so I was like, I'm going to stop doing front-end development altogether. I'm going to try and run from it. So I left the job I had been at for a few years, left a really good team behind, and pursued just trying to work back-end development. It didn't take me long to realize that it wasn't actually an hour, but it felt like it, because immediately starting my next position, I found out there was no way I could run from web development. No matter what I did, even being a .NET developer that wanted to focus on backends, I was always going to be a full stack developer. So at this point, I decided, you know what, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to try and find ways to make this work. Eventually took a position here in Nashville, which I relocated for. And this is when I really found my true calling. This was pretty interesting. Coming back into JavaScript after being away from it for a while, this is what it felt like. And I found this picture and I couldn't help but share it. The 10-year challenge has gone on for a few weeks now, at least on my social stream, and it's been interesting to see people I haven't seen in 10 years. But this one struck a chord. I came back to JavaScript and I felt overwhelmed. When I had left, it was just the platform or jQuery or some of these other small tools. And I come back and I need to learn all these new things. For some reason, people started adding types to JavaScript. We started adding compiling processes, and it just seemed overwhelming. So that was the real point where this talk kind of grew from, was coming into JavaScript and just being entirely overwhelmed with the ecosystem. So that's what I'm hoping to do today, is kind of take some of these tools and some of these things that may seem overwhelming, and I want to try and demystify them. I'm going to specifically focus on the tools that I use day in and day out at Eventbrite, and how they help me build things for other developers, and specifically what their uses are and why you should be using them, and really hone in on the simplicity of them, as long as you take them piece by piece. These things can be very overwhelming if you look at them as a grand scheme of things, an entire ecosystem. But looking at what each part is doing, it becomes a well-oiled machine. So the first one I want to look at, and this was the one that opened my eyes quite a bit, was NPM. It stands for Node Package Manager. And the best way to think about this, especially if you have a .NET background, is think about it like NuGet, or in Python world, it's pip. It's a dependency management system. For me, this was huge. I'd worked in code bases where vendor files and things, third-party folders just existed, and we had to maintain them. So jQuery was just a thing that we had inside of our source control system, or just a folder on a drive somewhere that we never touched, because if we did, it would probably break the entire app. So NPM gives you that ability now to upgrade these with ease and with confidence, to be able to jump from version to version. It also means that you as a company, or you as a developer, can share things more easily, both internally and publicly with other developers. This was huge for me, because now it meant that I could take things, make them more modular, and be able to share them across my organization a lot simply. And I don't have these 10,000 line files that I have to parse through to figure out what's going on a page. I can start taking these pieces, making them as small as possible, and then sharing them with my coworkers. Another key part of that was, once we had the modularity, I now introduced a new landscape, which was testing. And Jest, for me, has been the best testing framework I've used in JavaScript so far. And because of that, I can now test with ease. And that's something that, coming from a .NET background, I love testing. I really got into the idea of doing more and more testing. And I always was nervous about the deployments I would have, because I had no way of knowing if what I was doing was right. So Jest gave me that confidence to be able to build things again and be able to ship things without having to feel like I'm going to be on call all the time. So with that, the smaller modules also meant that I could test at a smaller level, mostly like I was doing in .NET and Python before. Another big one was Babel. This gave me cross-browser support through compilation. So I was able to start using new features, and I didn't have to worry anymore about backwards compatibility. There's no more IE7 issues. I just put in a polyfill, or I throw in a preset, and the configuration for these can get as complicated or as simple as you want. And it's really nice that I can actually write the newest version of JavaScript without feeling like I'm leaving my users behind with a screen that says, oh, you don't support this. And then tying those things together with things like Webpack can actually bring those packages, or all these small modules that I've built, and pull them into a single package. This has been really helpful, because it also takes part of those packages and goes through a process of tree shaking that tries to make as best use as possible of what modules you're using and which ones you're not. And this continues to make the asset delivery process a lot easier, and the ability to build these websites as small as possible. You'll see in the JavaScript community, there's a lot of people always talking about optimizing for low network. And this is one of those areas that you can really help work with that, because you can start, as you get deeper and deeper into Webpack, you can actually start making things load in later in the page, so that your initial screen load is pretty performant. Now that we've built things and we've bundled them, we also want to make sure that what we're doing inside the code is as consistent as possible. So one thing that we use at Eventbrite for this is called ESLint. This is really helpful for checking for different patterns that could be potential errors in your code, but also checking for conventions that you as a company have picked up on. And so this will give you errors and warnings about things that could potentially happen inside the code, especially at the global namespace level with name collisions, which is a big issue that I've had in the past. And this was able to kind of point me in the right directions of, backward if statements or functions that were too complex. I really kind of equate this back to like style cop in the .NET world of really just trying to enforce the consistency and guidelines that our company has built out to make sure that we're building things the same way, and it makes it easier for other developers to onboard, because if we build one module this way, we build the other one that looks just like it, it's easier for our developers to pick up that code and start running with it, instead of having to switch through different contexts and how they would be building an application, and they can focus more on what the actual logic is. Prettier is another one that I'm excited about, but isn't, I would say, is probably one of the ones that is definitely not necessary in the JavaScript ecosystem, at least right away. If you can use it, I definitely recommend it. This is one that Eventbrite doesn't currently use, but we're really trying to make strides to start using. This is a code formatter. So all of those places inside your code that may have a different styling, tab versus spaces rules, or how many arguments per line, this takes all of that and gives you a very opinionated formatter that allows you to all build things without having to think about the style of it. Much like its name, it's a reverse of uglify. So anytime that you would see minified code and really hard to read code, this gives it that opposite spin and really allows you to have, elegant code that's really easy to read through and really consistent. And this pairs really well with ESLint that we'd mentioned before, in that ESLint can look for conventions and patterns that could introduce errors, while as Prettier could actually just work on the styling and ensuring style consistency between the code. So some of these things seem like a little bit of an overlap, but they actually work really well together. So the real thing that made me love JavaScript again and really made me love web development again, hands down, would have to be React. Coming from a .NET background, I was working on massive apps that were, monolith in nature, both from an API, but also from an application standpoint. And when I moved down here to Nashville, I started working for a company that wanted me to add a feature in to their brand new, to their app. And it's this massive feature, and I had no idea how I was going to build it. They had dependencies on jQuery. They had dependencies on a few other like UI frameworks, and I couldn't figure out the right mix of things because it was basically a cocktail of JavaScript frameworks. So there was no fun way to kind of inject myself into that system and start building reliably, especially once all the senior developers had left the team and had no one really there to help me navigate it. So with the help of the other junior developers on the team, we were actually able to find React as a way that we can actually build features isolated from our current architecture, and then inject them back in and still be able to maintain that same level of consistency throughout the apps. So React kind of saved the day for us on a project, and it really worked with my mental model of how I like to build out small units of code that I can then build and ship independently of each other. So for me, this was like the turning point when we had to work on that project. It introduced me to React, which eventually was also the thing that opened my eyes to the craziness of the JavaScript ecosystem. But the developer experience within React was the real thing that kind of won me over on giving the rest of the ecosystem a chance, was the ability to save things and test things and instantaneously get that feedback of if everything was working or if the page was running properly. So what I want to leave you with here is that David Neal quote of, "This is definitely not your dad's JavaScript anymore. The ecosystem has definitely changed quite a bit, but it's absolutely for the better." Back in a time when you had massive files and third-party libraries all mixed into the same global namespace, we now have modular code that we can depend on clearly, test properly, and deploy independently. There's definitely not been a better time to do JavaScript development, in my opinion. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm Kyle. I love hockey. I drink a lot of Monster Energy drinks, and I work at Eventbrite. The slides are here. You can also find me on Twitter and on GitHub. So I appreciate you guys' time.
Let's see. There we go. Got my mic back on. Awesome. Thank you, Kyle.
Absolutely.
We've been having a full conversation over on Twitch about the quality of Webinar Jam. Apparently the quality wasn't very good, so a lot of people jumped over to Twitch, but Twitch has been amazing. So it's, maybe we'll just go Twitch for all future episodes, because I just want to go where the quality is. But we've had people coming in and out. Anyone out there watching live, if you have any questions for Kyle, now is the time and place. We'll just let it go. Kyle, I really think you should take that 10-year challenge slide, and you need to post that on Twitter or something, because that is the real 10-year challenge. It's like, yeah. Look, you had 1-2 things to choose from, and now you have everything.
Right, and on top of that, like, each one of these things has all of their own choices kind of baked into it as well. So I think I found it in a Slack channel, so I'm trying to hunt down the Twitter post that it started with and make sure that I put some retweets on it, because that's hands down been one of the funniest things I've seen lately.
Yeah, I remember I started web development back in 2007, and I remember jQuery. Like, jQuery just saved my hide, and it's like I could do anything with jQuery. And nowadays, I'll sit on a client call and they'll say, "Well, what front end should we use?" And I'm like, "Hold on, that's a big question. let's talk about all your concerns." And it's this choose your own adventure. All right. Well, I want a single page application with client-side routing. So flip to page 10. Say, okay. Well, I want declarative rendering. All right, that's back to page 52. And then at the end you get, you should go React. And it's never that easy. It's always, people are talking about React. People are talking about Vue. I'll just go with one of those two, and you're done.
It's React. It reacts near to the heart, and as much as I want to try any of the others, I haven't really devoted the time to give it justice. I feel like if I was going to do it, I want to make sure that I do it right.
Yeah.
And I just don't have enough free time to go, I'm just going to rebuild an app I've built in Angular. To really give it.
Don't do Angular.
Well, even Vue. I just like some of the core things with those frameworks, particularly like the template driven development.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't mesh with how I work. So it's been interesting. We've got an Ember guy here in Nashville, and he, every couple of weeks pokes me and says, "You should try Ember now." And I'm like, "No, I'm still good."
Ember is like the framework people have forgotten about. It's like jQuery is still relevant enough in people's lives that you say jQuery and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember jQuery." But you say Ember, it's like saying Backbone JS. Oh wait, way back machine right there, son. I I forgot about Backbone.
We still have a backbone at Eventbrite, so I'm not allowed to forget it too easily.
Oh, okay. It was nice for me as a consultant. I'm kind of jumping between a lot of different projects, and it gives me the flexibility to try something new. If I have a if I have an elementary understanding of it, I can jump into it. So we've done projects in every version of Angular you can possibly imagine. Well, there's a lot of them. We've done in React, we've done Vue, and really the two projects I like maintaining are our Vue apps and our React apps. Our Angular ones, we actually are selling the client on upgrading moving the Vue because we don't like supporting it anymore. It's just too hard. We've hit that theoretical wall with versions where it'll cost more time and money to upgrade than it would for me just to rewrite most of the front end pieces. Of course, I'm also a developer, so I'm way underestimating the amount of time it'll take.
Yeah, migrating is going to be easy.
Yeah.
Hour 57. No, it's so bad.
Yeah. It's only 600 views that we have to change, right? It's all just HTML and CSS.
Yeah.
But all right, just no real questions out there, just some other chatter about the frameworks. But so we'll go ahead and close things up there. But Kyle, again, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And this will go up on YouTube in a couple days. And anyone out there watching, if you're out on Twitch, go to swiftkick.in. You can get on the list for future episodes, or just pay attention to my Twitter. And we'll see you all next time. So everyone out there, have a great day. Thank you, Kyle.
Awesome. Thanks.